Daddy's gotta go to work. What are your names again?
My name.
It doesn't matter what your names are. You walk around here interrupting the rock, you like you haven't seen the sun in 20 years, you like you just stepped out of Oliver Twist. Please, sir, may I have some more advice, sir? You want some advice? Here's the rock's advice. Shut your mouth. What you want? How about what the rock wants?
Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am the jabroni beating, pie eating, trailblazing, eyebrow raising, talking is done, you're out of your class, no sleep till Brooklyn, the rock whips your ass. Whoa! Can you believe that? Finally, the rock has come back.
What's going on, brothers and sisters? Coming to you from Theater D, Row J, Seat 7. I am the Godfather, Nate Milton, and this is the Rocky Maivia Picture Show, your favorite pop culture and pro wrestling podcast dedicated to the genius of sports entertainer turned thespian, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Now playing this week, 2014's Hercules.
That's all muscle. Oh, you fat. I'm muscle.
Oh, look at my little Bill. He's a little Hercules. Show me muscle again. Oh, Hercules.
What you work out?
Hercules.
Your metabolism start to speed up. You get anything you want.
Oh, wait a minute. That's my bad, ladies and gentlemen. That's on me. We played the wrong clip, okay? Make sure people in the truck got the right clip this time so we can set up the scene for this film we're going to talk about this week. Ladies and gentlemen, now playing this week, 2014's Hercules.
That's right, Hercules Mulligan! Tell a spine on the British government. I take the measurements, information, and then I smuggle it to my brother's revolutionary covenant. I'm running with the Sons of Liberty, and I am loving it. See, that's what happens when you up against the ruffians. We in the shit now, somebody's gotta shovel it. Hercules Mulligan, I need no introduction. When you knock me down, I get the back up again.
Really? Come on, guys. Damn it. Ricky, get it together, man. Ricky, okay, I understand you're my cousin's nephew's brother, but we have to get the right clips for the audience. I apologize to the audience. I apologize to my guest that I'm going to bring on this week. I'm sorry for yelling, but let's see if we can get it right, Ricky. So ladies and gentlemen, let's try it again. Now playing this week, 2014's Hercules.
Listen to me. None of this is my fault. You see, God has poisoned my mind, turned me against you. I like you. Now stop. I command you to stop. I'm your king. You're going to obey me. Use what is use. Oh, wait. You fight for gold. Have plenty of gold. Name your price. Find it in your heart to forgive.
You want forgiveness? Ask my family for forgiveness.
There it is. That's the clip I wanted to let you guys and girls hear out there, because this is going to be an experience. Ricky, we will be having a conversation about this after the show, but let's not waste any time. Let's not dawdle right here, folks, because this week we're going to talk about The Rock's return to the Sword and Sandals pictures in 2014's Hercules. But I can't do this alone. And since every Siskel needs an Ebert, every Ebert needs a Roper, and every Blaine needs a Twine, I have a special guest, a first-time guest in the theater to help me review this film. Our guest this week is somebody who I've been on the same show as, but we've never talked. We've never interacted. We've been like two ships crossing paths in the night. Never the two shall meet until this fateful day. So my guest is a podcast host. She is in charge of two wonderful podcasts right now. She's on the True North Nerds with friend of the program, Brent Chittenden, where they talk about general nerdiness, and of course, Sailor Snacking, where she reviews the 90s Sailor Moon anime while having a yummy snack. So, unfortunately, the snacks in this theater might not be up to your standards, but I am glad to have you here. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Gen Chittenden into the theater. Jen, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine. I like fine. I was stuck between good and fantastic, and fine is what came out, which might be a precursor, might be some foreshadowing to how I feel about this film.
Yep. That's pretty much how I felt after this movie too.
I thought it was going to be great. Thought it was going to be fantastic, and you know what? It's just fine.
It was fine.
But yeah, Jen, like I mentioned, I've been on True North Nerds with your lesser half. Only kidding, Brent. I've been on True North Nerds with Brent a couple times over the past few years. But you and I have never interacted before, and so yeah, this is going to be cool to sit down and talk with you about this film, and in particular, just kind of finding out where you were coming to with your experience, your life experience, and kind of your knowledge base when it comes to Hercules.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird that you've been on True North Nerds and we've never actually had a chance to interact. And I've heard your show and I've heard you on our show, but it's weird. So I kind of feel like I know you, and Brent talks about you a lot. All positive, I promise.
It better be. I mean, but no, Brent was actually here to speak. I'm trying to remember. Oh, Brent was on Be Cool, which was a fun episode where we talked about The Rock early on in his career. And so, this is interesting because, yes, this is a return with Hercules to kind of The Rock's beginnings as an actor, like we saw him in The Scorpion King. But now it's, instead of The Rock being this new actor, it's Dwayne Johnson kind of at the height of his film powers in Hollywood. So before we talk about Hercules, Jen, let's kind of learn about you a little bit. The first question I always ask my guests on this program is, what was your experience with The Rock? Were you a wrestling fan back in the day? Were you aware of what DJ did in the ring? And, what kind of knowledge base did you have before we saw Rock make that transition to the silver screen?
Well, I'm sorry to say to your listeners that I am not a wrestling fan. Brent has been trying very hard since we met to make me a wrestling fan. And so I have seen a fair bit of wrestling, but I'm still not really a fan. I'm sorry.
You're just an observer of the sport.
I appreciate it for what it is. And I definitely don't think that it's bad. It's just not my thing. But so all of my experience with The Rock has been as an actor. And clips on YouTube of him in wrestling, which is funny things that Brent's like, oh, you got to see this. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but okay. So I can't, I'm sure I saw him for the first time in The Scorpion King, because that was his first movie, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure I didn't see this in 2014, but I can't remember what my first movie with The Rock was, but I knew I liked him right off the bat. I was like, oh, okay, he's somebody you got to watch. So now basically if he's in a movie, I will go see it, whether the movie is good or bad. Mostly because he tends to be very good in everything that he does. He gives it his all and he promotes the hell out of it. So, even if the movie is not great, he tends to be good in it, which I really like, actors who can do that. And then the reason that I wanted to do Hercules in particular was because not only is The Rock in it, but my background is classical history. So I've got a university degree from Western Ontario University in classical history. So usually when I watch movies that take place in ancient Greek and ancient Rome, it sets my teeth on edge. And I just spend the whole time just angry at the screen because I'm like, it's so easy to get it right. Why can't you get it right? So I was full on expecting that going into this movie and was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, this film is interesting. And I agree with what you said about, Dwayne as an actor in that oftentimes, even when the movie isn't the greatest, and, you know, the listeners know we've talked about at least 5 or 6 films of DJs that haven't been the greatest, like, he's always good in them, you know, or at least he's charming, and you want to spend 90 minutes. You want to spend 2 hours with the guy. And I think Hercules is no exception. So let's kind of, before we get to the movie, let's play some games here, Jen. Let's have some fun here. Let's put a little razzle dazzle on this podcast, because it is time for a segment that we like to call the Time Warp. And so for anybody that's listening for the first time, you know, we getting that Gen Chittenden bump here. We getting a new audience coming to the program because of you. The Time Warp is where we look back at the year that this film was released and check out what was going on in the pop culture, particularly what was going on in the music charts, because it's an excuse, and I've said this before on the podcast, Jen, it's an excuse for me to do a quick needle drop. And that makes the editing process more fun for me if I can throw a song from 2013 to 2014 in the middle of the podcast.
Nice.
So let's look back at the Billboard. See, if I was on top of my game here, I would have looked at the Canadian charts, but instead we're going to look at the boring old U.S. charts, the Billboard Top 100, because Hercules was released on July 25th, 2014, here in the States. Jen, do you have a guess as to what the number one song that week on the Billboard Hot 100 was?
Oh, man. You know what? 2014 was kind of like a blur to me that year, because that's the year I got married. So I didn't really pay attention to anything outside of my own little wedding bubble. I remember I really liked the song from the Lego Movie. Was that in 2014? Because my best friend played that for me on my wedding day. It was Everything Is Awesome.
That's a great song. That is a great song.
That's my guess. I have no idea if that's right or not.
Well, I'll give you half credit. I'll give you half a point, because this song does involve a wedding, or at least courtship, and it's crazy, you know, that you mentioned, Jen. Like 2014, it feels so long ago, even though in the grand scheme of history, it really was the blink of an eye. But I forgot all about this song. Like you couldn't have paid me enough money to remember this song if I hadn't looked it up this week. The number one song in America, the week of July the 25th, 2014, was Magic with Rude.
Saturday morning, jumped out of bed and put on my best suit. Got in my car, raced like a jet, all the way to you. Knocked on your door with heart in my head to ask you a question, 'cause I know that you're an old-fashioned man. Yeah. Can I have your daughter for the rest of my life? Say yes, 'cause I need to know. You say I'll never get your blessing till the day I die. Tough love for my friend, but the answer is no. Why you gotta be so rude? Don't you know I'm human too? Why you gotta be so rude? I'm gonna marry you anyway. Marry that girl. Marry you anyway. Marry that girl. Yeah, no matter what you say. Marry that girl. And we'll be a family. Why you gotta be so
Do you have any recollection of Rude by Magic?
I don't even think I know that song.
Oh, so it's why you want to be so rude? Don't you know I'm human
that
too?
song! Oh, I hate that song.
I'm gonna marry your daughter anyway.
Yeah, that's why I hate that song. I'm like, oh, jeez, you're such a jackass.
Like, it's a weird song. Like, I went back and listened to it, and obviously the listeners just heard it because of the aforementioned needle drop. But it's like a weird, like, passive-aggressive song that's like, it's also like the beat. Like, it's got this weird calypso beat that doesn't fit the singers when you actually see who's singing the song.
Oh, yeah, no, I still hear that song every once in a while, and I change the radio station. Do not like that song. I
will say, the one good thing that this song did produce is a cover version of Rude. And get ready for another needle drop, folks. There's I don't know if you've heard of Scott Bradley and the Postmodern Jukebox.
Oh, yeah, I love them.
Yes. So they did a cover of Rude, which is like 100 times better than the original. And listeners, here it is.
I hate to do this, you leave no choice. Love me or hate me, we will be both standing at their altar. Or we will run away to another galaxy, you know. She is in love with me. She will go anywhere I go. Can I have your daughter for the rest of my life? Say yes, 'cause I need to know. You say I'll never get your blessing till the day I die. Tell me, look, my friend, the answer is no. Why you gotta be so rude? Don't you know I'm human too? Why you gotta be so rude? I'm gonna marry you anyway. I'll marry you anyway. No matter what you say, we'll be a family. Why you gotta be so?
So yeah, that's my Rude. Like that's
much better.
And yes, in like my personal history book, my personal records, Jen, like that's the only Rude I will ever acknowledge.
Oh yeah, that's much better.
And besides that cover, like the only good thing about that was like for at least a good 3 weeks, I would always tease my oldest niece with that song because, you know, like I'm babysitting her and then, you know, she's got to go to bed or it's dinner time and she's not listening. And so she's like, yeah, I don't feel like it. And then I would just look at her and be like, Lisa, why you gotta be so rude? Don't you know I'm human too? And so like just through the power of youthful sarcasm, she was just like, all right, I'll eat dinner and go to bed. Whatever it takes for you to stop quoting this one-hit wonder.
Like, okay, older person, stop trying to be cool.
Yes.
It's not working.
So yeah, that was the number one song at the time. The second part of the Time Warp, Jen, is always an interesting game to play, and that is the budget game.
Oof.
So, the budget for Hercules was $100 million.
Okay.
Can you guess the worldwide box office for 2014's Hercules?
Oh, man. Worldwide. I don't think it did very well. But I don't know if it even, like, made its money back. Because, like I said, I don't really even remember this ever being in theaters. So, I don't know. Probably, I'm going to guess it made its money back. So, I'm going to guess, like, $110 million.
Ooh, okay. So, Jen is saying 110 on a $100 million budget. Here's the thing, Jen. This movie, you know, it had Brett Ratner as a director. It had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as its lead. You know, it had fire and like scantily dressed women. So it was going to make a little bit of money. And it did make a little bit of money. You know, it made back its budget, but I wouldn't qualify it as a smash because 2014's Hercules on a budget of $100 million made $244 million worldwide.
The millions.
Okay, so at least I was right that it made back its money.
Yeah, like it made back its budget and, you know, enough to pay craft services.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, it wasn't the runaway hit that I think the studio was expecting.
No. Yeah, I don't know if they just didn't market it right. Because, again, like I said, I have no memory of it even being in theaters. And usually these are the types of movies that I look out for. Because, like I said, I love watching or anything classical history related. And especially if it's got The Rock in it. So, yeah. Oh, weird.
See, I remember the movie coming out in 2014, but it just didn't appeal to me. And it might have been the marketing because on paper, like I just mentioned, with all of those ingredients, it should have been right in my demographic. But for whatever reason, it just didn't catch my attention. So let's talk about this film. 2014's Hercules, directed by Brett Ratner, with a screenplay by Ryan J. Condal and Evan Spilotopoulos, based on Hercules, The Thracian Wars by Steve Moore, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Ian McShane, Rufus Sewell, and a bunch of other people who I didn't know who they were besides the first couple of names, Jen.
Oh, it had such a great cast. Was it Ray Fiennes or his brother? One of the Fiennes brothers was in it too.
It was Joe. It was Joe Fiennes.
Oh yeah. And John Hurt.
Yes. Okay.
Because I was watching this with Brent, and he went, "Oh, look, it's John Hurt."
See, I think, Well, let's talk about it because, okay, so the basic plot. So the basic plot for this is we got Hercules here. Anybody that doesn't know, and Jen, you can hop in and fill in the details for the listeners out there. But Cliff's Notes. Hercules is a demigod, I believe is the term. He's half human, half god. Zeus was out there doing what gods do, and stepping out. Doing what Zeus does. He was stepping out and had a baby out of wedlock. And so Hercules is said child, and he's not quite a god, but he's more than a man, Jen.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And so we see, I guess at the beginning, like this might have been what got me into this, because I had my doubts about this film, Jen, because, there, like you said, there were kind of lukewarm reviews on this. Mm-hmm. But the way they set it up, where we get like the voiceover, like, you think you know the story of Hercules, let me tell you the real story, and we get almost like a very pro wrestling promo package of here's Hercules and his 12 labors, and that actually kind of got me invested in the story.
Yeah, and I really liked that beginning part. As soon as I hear you think you know the story, but you don't, I groan. I go, oh God, I know the story. I just know it. It's okay. You don't have to do this. And then they like you said, the Coles Notes version of the 12 labors. And I was like, okay, they're hitting the right beats. That's accurate to the myth. Cool. I love that they did that. But like the best part of this movie is that they use that myth and they use that mythology to make Hercules, who is a human, like a man, just a straight up mortal, into a demigod. And they're like, this is how they make him how he's such a good mercenary, is that they take all of these stories and they just blow them out of proportion and they turn him into a demigod, even though he's, throughout the whole movie, you're left wondering, is he or isn't he? Which is the spin that I really liked about this movie and didn't make me want to hurt people.
Yeah, well, I thought they could have leaned into that a little harder, honestly.
Yeah, they probably could have. Like, they did a good job of saying "so they say," and having they pronounced his name Iolaus, which is weird. I always say Aeolus.
Yes,
his nephew be the like herald of Hercules, who goes around and is like, you've heard all of this great stuff that he's done, and I'm going to exaggerate it, and just talking him up everywhere he goes. And I was like, okay, see, now this is a good spin. This I like. Now I'm interested.
Yeah, so we got and that got me too, because unlike certain individuals who have put dedication and hard work and years of study into learning about Greek literature, I learned everything I needed to know about Greek literature from the old 90s Hercules, The Legendary Journeys.
Oh my God, I love that show.
And on that show, they called the man was Aeolus. So that's why I was like, why do they keep calling this man Aeolus? That doesn't even sound right.
Yeah, that's honestly why I pronounce it Aeolus too. And I could be incorrect. Greek pronunciation is weird. But
so
yeah,
let's dig into that a little bit deeper before we kind of continue on with the movie. So as somebody that has that background, just studying the kind of the classics and the history that is involved with this, how did the framework, I guess, of the story, how did that kind of hit you, and did it set off your kind of scholarly spidey senses when they would hit on some of these legends and some of these myths and the names of some of these gods?
Well, what I did is, before I watched this again, I did some research, and Brent was like, really, you don't need to have 5 pages of research for this. And I'm like, but I do. And I looked up the names of all the characters. So his band of mercenaries, I looked up all their names to see if they were actually in mythology. And I'm like, somebody did his homework, because all of them are characters in mythology and possibly history, not necessarily the way they were portrayed in the movie, except for Iolaus is actually the nephew of Hercules. That was right. And I also thought that they got Ian McShane close. So he was Amphiaraus, the one who kept predicting his death by fire, which I loved. So in actual mythology, he was a seer. He was a famous seer, an oracle. He could see the future. And how he had that scar on his eye in the movie? In the mythology, he actually lost one of his eyes to the Caledonian boar. So I was like, well, that's a kind of a nice touch. I don't know if they did it that's why they did it, but I was like, okay, that's a nice touch.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, somebody read their Apollodorus when they wrote the script for this.
It's kind of like they're taking all these bits and pieces from these stories and these historical accounts, and it's like the Hercules cinematic universe. Like we're bringing everybody together.
Yeah, kind of. And then the character of Atalanta, the female archer.
She was good. I liked her.
Oh, she was great. A lot of these movies tend to have like the token badass girl or woman. So I'm like, okay, fine. Atalanta's a pretty good choice for that. And her myth is, and the other thing that I thought was interesting is that all of these characters in mythology and history are also sort of connected to Hercules in some way. Most of them through Jason and the Argonauts, because Hercules was an Argonaut, and so were most of these characters, which I thought was kind of cool too. And again, I don't know if that was intentional, but they did that. So I thought that was really cool. Like they hit some really good beats. Like I said before, they got all of the 12 labors. They mentioned them. I think they mentioned all of them at one point or another throughout the whole movie. He's wearing his lion skin, holding a club, which is the trademarks of Hercules in pottery and sculpture. That's how you can identify Hercules. And yeah, I think they mentioned every single myth, except for maybe, I'm looking at the list. I don't think they mentioned the mares of Diomedes. But yeah, the last one of Cerberus, the 3-headed dog of Hades. Yeah. I loved the spin that they did on that because Ian McShane's character, I'm not going to even try to pronounce his name every time, kept saying, you have one more to go. That's why you keep seeing visions of Cerberus. And it ended up being the 3 wolves. And I'm like, oh, that's clever. I like that. So yeah, like it hit it just did just enough of the myth and of the history to kind of make it almost plausible without going into too much detail to make mean that you had to be really historically accurate. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I think, and maybe it's because I came into this with my main Hercules knowledge besides the Disney film. Like,
oh god, I love that film too.
Other than that, like my main source of Hercules knowledge, like I mentioned, Jen, was the 90s TV show. Like this film kind of felt like a TV movie in a way rather than like a feature film.
Yeah, I can see that too. Yeah.
And like I think the way they just like this movie was not playing around for time. Like it's not a long movie. It's like an hour and 35-40 minutes, if that.
Yeah.
And so like we get the opening deal where we get Hercules' backstory. Zeus, you are the father. And then we go right to like these quick flashes where is it the Hydra that he's fighting?
Yes, he's fighting the Hydra.
Yep.
Which I thought was really cool.
Just come out of like we're not even 5 minutes into the film and we get this really quick but really like cool special effects laden scene where Hercules is walking through this swamp and all of a sudden the Hydra comes out and attacks him and he cuts off a bunch of Hydra heads. and then he's like fighting the boar, and then we see the lion, and that's all we get of the stories until a little bit later. So like they give you these bits and pieces of the mythology, but ultimately this movie kind of centers around The Rock as Hercules, and then this little band of friends / family / mercenaries, that he's kind of built over the years.
Yeah. And I really liked the kind of ragtag group that he pulled together. And later in the movie, you hear about why they're all together, which I thought was very nice. But, you know, you get the feeling like they have really good chemistry together, that whole group.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of get the feeling throughout the movie that, you know, they actually, I was kind of thinking of it like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Like they actually want to be together and they have like a common interest and a common goal.
Yes.
As opposed to just, oh, we need people to follow the Rock around. Here you go. And I like that they had backstories and they had purpose, which is really cool.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of the other characters as we go along. But let's focus on The Rock real quick before we get deeper into the story, Jen, because this movie, for better or for worse, is going to hinge upon whether you buy The Rock as Hercules. So what did you think of our man DJ here as the title character?
Appearance-wise, pretty good. Not gonna lie. I like I said, I like that they got some of the costuming right with the lion, the Nemean lion skin and the mace as his primary weapons, because that's basically the history or the mythological version of Hercules. The beard was weird looking, and I don't think he suits a beard very well. But you know, and I can't really comment one way or another if that's historically accurate, because you know they didn't have cameras back then. So you know, sometimes you get pictures of Hercules, or you get images of Hercules with a beard, and sometimes you don't. It's, you know, that's up to artistic interpretation. Him as the character of Hercules. See, this is another one of my pet peeves with ancient history movies, is that the morals and the ethics of ancient Greece and ancient Rome are not the same morals and ethics of modern day.
Right.
So in order to make him a modern day hero, they had to ignore a lot of what the character of Hercules was back in ancient Greece. Because he was way too nice.
Well, that like you just hit on something that just sprung to my mind, Jen, and I was trying to figure it out, because I think The Rock is good at the role, but I don't feel like the role quite fits the movie as well as some of the other characters. And it wasn't until you just said that, like, it feels like The Rock is just too modern. And I don't know if this is his genre. Because even going back to the Scorpion King, like, I think he was, you know, for his first film, he did as good as one could expect. But he just, like, it's hard to put The Rock in a period piece, whether you're talking about ancient Rome or whether you're talking about ancient Greece or whether you're talking about, like, I couldn't see The Rock doing a Western because he feels like a man of now, not a man of yesterday.
Yeah, I can see that too. And also The Rock's got this carefully curated image of himself as an actor. So I'm pretty sure, I think especially now that he's got more clout and he can pick and choose his roles, he's always very careful to choose roles and characters that will augment his overall image. So, you know, he doesn't play a dirtbag. He doesn't usually play a villain. He plays like, he doesn't usually have like a sex scene or, you know, going from girl to girl. He always plays this like morally upstanding, very ethical kind of a protagonist, which is great because it really makes him in the minds of everybody, myself included. It works. You know, that's how you think of him as a person because those are the roles he plays. That's how you see him. But Hercules, historically, a bit of a jackass. As most ancient Greeks were. You know, like, I don't see him. He was way too nice. He was too modest. And he was just, you know, like, Hercules and restraint are usually in mythology the things that go well together.
Yeah, and I feel like if this wasn't The Rock, and it's interesting that you brought up, you know, he doesn't usually do sex scenes, because that's a topic that we've discussed on this program, a few times, whereas I think, that's not the image DJ wants to kind of portray on screen, but also, like, I don't know if Hollywood knows what to do with this man who is biracial.
No, that's true.
His co-stars, who usually, like, most of the time is female leads, tend to be white. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if Hollywood quite knows what to do with that puzzle piece. And so, like, we get The Rock, and I can't remember her name, but the king's daughter.
Oh yeah, I just wrote princess. I got it. I didn't catch her name either.
A princess, like, there should be like a romance story here, and there's hints of it, but you never really feel like these two people are going to end up except out of convenience because her son needs a new daddy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they say that Hercules had a wife and had children.
Yep.
And they died, and that's why he had to do the 12 labors, and why he ended up being a mercenary, sort of, according to the movie. So you feel like the way that they get around not having a relationship with the princess in this movie is by always bringing that up. Like, I have a dead wife. But yeah, I agree. I think it feels like that it should have maybe been a part of the movie just to give him some interest in the people. Like, he's got no vested interest in these people. Like, once he gets paid towards the end of the movie and the king is like, just leave. I'm like, why isn't he leaving? Like, why? He has no reason not to leave. Like, there's nothing.
see, Hercules would have left, but not Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, but even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I'm like, okay, but if John Hurt's not the king, then the other guy's going to be the king. So why do you care which one's the king?
Yeah.
You got paid, just leave.
So yeah, and this, like, again, like, this movie does not play around. This, Hercules did not come to play. Hercules came to slay. So we get right into, like, we get that first scene where after we get the Rock's Hercules' promo package, we get the pirate scene where Hercules beats up these pirates, and then they're having a celebration, and, like, all of this happens within the span of about 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, this movie moves at a really good pace. Yeah.
Yep. So, like, it moves at a good pace because we got to get to Thrace, and so we get the princess coming in. Like, I need help, and The Rock and his band of mercenaries are like, okay, how much are we gonna get paid? And they're like, okay, let's do it. And immediately we are brought to Thrace, and the king is like, hey, yeah, there's this really bad guy, and there's centaurs, and there's sorcery, and he's got demons on the payroll, and we need your help, Hercules, to turn these ragtag farmers and soldiers that I have into an army.
That was another thing I really liked. I love that they brought up the centaurs. And I loved that because honestly, pardon me, honestly, I don't know what happened in ancient history because I wasn't there, but I'm thinking that these myths and legends and stories came from some sort of truth. And that truth might have been exactly what was shown in this movie. Somebody sees a guy on horseback on a shadowy hill and thinks, holy crap, it's a centaur. And then, like everything else in this movie, all the stories snowball. And I really love that they did that, not just for Hercules, but also for the bad guys.
So yeah, like there's so many interesting kind of like little, like, is it real? Is it fake? Is this, is Hercules an actual, demigod, or is he just a really buff dude that's got a nice team of friends around him?
Exactly.
And so then, like, the king gets Hercules to train up this army. They're beating up Rhesus. I remember that name because every time they said it, I thought of Halloween candy.
Oh yeah, me too. I was like, Reese's Pieces. And then the next day I went and bought some chocolate. So, subliminal messaging.
It works. Maybe this whole movie, this whole film was just a backdoor pilot from the Mars Candy Company. So yeah, like they go fight Rhesus. I thought this scene was really cool though. When they go to the battlefield and they're like, the village that Rhesus supposedly ransacked is like, they're too late. Everybody's dead. And then, like, these dead bodies, it's a trap. And that's kind of our first really big battle scene of the movie, where the Rock and these farmers that he's trained to be an army have to fight these it's almost like it almost turns into a zombie movie for about 3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. That was really cool. And I liked that before this, when they were like, we need to go fight. And Hercules is like, I just got here and these guys have no idea what they're doing. This is a bad idea. And the king's like, we're going anyway. And he's like, all right. The other thing, this is me being nitpicky again. This is why Brent doesn't like to watch historical movies with me. So I did a course for my degree on warfare, which was super interesting. And now every time I watch these movies, and I know you have to make it grand for movies and make it exciting, but I'm always like, that's not right. Like, they made one giant rectangle with a hole in the middle. I'm like, that's stupid.
Yes.
That's just stupid. The horses could literally jump over you because there was only like 3 people deep and then kill you all from behind. That's what I would have done if I was the bad guy. I would have been like, oh, well, they're all dead. Awesome. And I don't understand why the bad guys ran away at the end, because they were winning.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, there were 2 battles going on at once. There was like the battle with the characters we cared about, like Hercules and the crew, and they were holding their own against the horde, as it were. But all the king's horses and all the king's men were getting destroyed by these folks. And so it's like all of a sudden they bring in some chariots and they do some more damage, and then these guys just run away. Like that victory felt I believe it would be termed a Pyrrhic victory, Jen.
Yeah. Oh, good.
See, I know some things too, ladies and gentlemen.
I use that term a lot and nobody ever gets it, so that's awesome. A slight tangent, because this is what reminded me of a story when I was out with a friend of mine, and we were waiting to turn left, like through the intersection. And I was sitting in the passenger side, and my friend was driving, and the guy behind us was honking because he wanted us to go through the intersection. So he whipped around beside us to turn left in front of us. And I was like, oh, I should have opened my door. That would have stopped him. And my friend was like, you would have taken off the door. And I said, it would have been a Pyrrhic victory.
Yes, that's a wonderful word. Like, it's
great.
It's not used enough in modern language.
Yeah. So if anybody doesn't know what that means, it's a victory where you suffer as much or more losses than the person you've just defeated, but you still win.
Kind of sounds like the 2020 election.
Oh God, yeah. Kind of happy I'm in Canada. Not gonna lie.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners would like to be in Canada right now.
I wanted to make a comment about the general and his bone whip.
Yes, that came out of nowhere, that we didn't get any type of setup for.
I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah,
that's not historically accurate.
Yeah, because out of nowhere, like the horde is closing in on the king, and it's like you said, they made this big square around the
square.
king. Like the king, Aeolus, and the general are in the middle. And out of nowhere, the general breaks out this whip with all of these bones on it. It's like we haven't seen him practicing with the whip. We haven't seen him cleaning the whip. And all of a sudden, he just brings it out. And he is just destroying these mindless enemy forces left and right with this whip that we did not know about, but will come back to play a key role in the story later.
It's the most impractical weapon to have on a battlefield of all places. Like a whip, it doesn't kill anybody. Oh, I mean, I guess this has bones on it. It's supposed to kill people, but in close quarters, I'm going to kill that guy that's 8 feet away from me while the 12 guys that are within my, a foot of me are going to stab me to death. Like it's, little things like that irk me.
So then that brings us to our next battle, which again is where you mentioned we get the great clip of Aeolus thinking that they're actual centaurs on the mountain. But it turns out just to be Rhesus and his men on their horses, which is a cute little reveal. But then we get Rhesus setting up, they're talking about the terms of battle. The Rock is not going to surrender because we're only 40 minutes into the film, and that would be a quick conclusion. So they're like, no, we're going to fight today. You know, we came all the way out here for this battle, so we're going to fight. And then as opposed to the first fight, I skipped the point because we had The Rock go up to the king after the last fight, and he was like, I told you. Like,
yeah, I love that. I'm like, yes, way to throw in the I told you so. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's like, give me some time to actually train these guys and make them into an army. And so we get the Rocky training montage. Yep. of the soldiers training. Okay, and then we get during this time we also get a little bit more of the backstory of what happened with Hercules' family, because Hercules is hurt during the battle, and the princess gives him some drink, some scissor, something, and the Rock has visions of
honestly, it was probably opium.
Like that's what they would have used back then.
Yeah, they didn't know what it was. All they knew is that it made you go sleep.
Oh yeah, so the Rock went to sleep, and then he woke up and thought he saw Service in the woods. And
that
so
was a cool scene.
Yeah, and then the mute, I forget the mute's name.
I don't know. He looked like a Viking. I was like, why is there a Viking in this movie?
Yeah, so like Hercules, let's pause right here, Jen. Let's talk about this crew, because you've got Aeolus, who was the storyteller, right?
Yeah, hang on, I've got their names written down somewhere. Because again, I took copious notes.
So I know Aeolus is the nephew of Hercules. That's the storyteller.
Yep.
And he's essentially like Hercules' hype man. Like for wrestling fans, he is the Mean Gene Okerlund to Hercules' Hulk Hogan.
I know who Hulk Hogan is.
I wish I didn't know who Hulk Hogan was.
Yeah,
in 2020.
Me too, honestly.
So yeah, we got Aeolus, who's the storyteller. We've got Atalanta, who is the archer.
Yep.
We've got the mute guy.
Yeah, his name is Tydeus.
Yes, that sounds because and he's got a really for a minor character, they actually do give him an interesting backstory.
Yeah, also very weird.
Yes. Because he's like, his village was ravaged, and even though, here's the other thing, because I read him and Hercules as being like around the same age.
Yeah, me too.
But according to this film, they tell us that Hercules found Tydeus' village ravaged, and Tydeus was like this little boy, and Hercules rescued him, but he was more animal than man, Jen, and Hercules was the only one who was able to bring him to a somewhat human state through his friendship, and that's why Tydeus is loyal to Hercules.
Yeah, see, this is, again, Hercules being way too nice. But, okay, I guess it could make sense if, because it was Autolycus who was, what's his name? The smart mouth guy, the funny one. I like him.
Oh, yes, he was great.
Yeah, so it was Autolycus and Hercules who were in the army together in Athens, and then they both found Tydeus. So, I mean, they probably could have been like 16, 17 when they found him, which would make the ages close-ish. But
yeah, that is true, because they would have been young in the army.
Yeah, especially if they were kids on the streets of Athens, and, as soon as they were old enough, they went into the army. Yeah. Which I don't think ancient Greece actually had an age. It was probably as soon as you became a man, which was around 13. You could probably join the army. I'm not sure.
Okay, so maybe he's a few years younger than Hercules and Autolycus, which is kind of weird that you got these two essentially grown men raising this slightly younger child.
Yeah, I know. They phrased it really weird. Like they shouldn't have said like we raised him. They could have been like, we found him and he joined our band or something.
Yeah, like a little brother
relationship. Yeah. Instead of like, it made it sound like they were Tydeus was their son.
So we got Tydeus, we got Autolycus, who you mentioned, who is like Hercules' right-hand man. They've been down since day one.
He was the one who had all the best one-liners too.
Yep.
Lesson 1: today we learn how not to stab yourself.
Yes, he's really funny. But then, in my opinion, like the guy that stole the show was the seer.
Oh yeah, Amphiaraus. I only know that.
That's exactly what I meant to say.
Yeah, Ian McShane. Yeah, but Ian McShane is fantastic in everything. Like, I don't think I've seen something with him in it where he hasn't been phenomenal.
It's funny because, like, yeah, Ian McShane was great in this. Like, I would argue if we're ranking the performances in this, he would probably be near the top of my list. Yeah. But I was getting, particularly in the scene where he's like using the fire to see the visions of what's going to happen next, he was giving off like late era Al Pacino vibes. So like that's our crew. Like we've got like everybody's got a role, everybody's got a position on the team, and like I think in that opening, the very first fight against the pirates, we kind of see how everybody is working for the benefit of Hercules, but also Hercules, like he says later, like they're his family.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I said, when they have like a really good kind of chemistry and they move well together and they're all on the same page, which I really liked. I think that they were a very good group.
Yeah. So now that we've established the characters, we can get back to this fight with Rhesus, because Rhesus and his man are getting ready to attack, and he's like, you're outnumbered. We outnumber you 3-1, which again, like these odds, like we've already seen Hercules in this movie, like beat up 5-10 guys by himself, and then another 20 more with the help of his crew. So like the odds are very even, maybe even slightly weighted in the favor of Hercules and this new army that he's trained.
Yeah, especially because at this point they actually know what they're doing, and they have like better ranks, and they have, they're formed up a lot better. But the bad guys have stirrups on their horses, which is another one of my ancient history things. Stirrups weren't invented or didn't come into use in the West until the 6th or 7th centuries AD. And this takes place in 358 BC. So they're like a couple centuries too early.
Interesting. So yeah, so I think maybe, again, going back to the notion that Hercules feels like a man out of time, maybe this takes place in a timeless Greece, Jen.
Yeah, maybe. This is Brent's like, stop being mad at the movie. It's easier to ride with stirrups. That's why they have them. They don't expect people to point this out every time. I'm like, oh, but it bugs me.
So like I think what I did like about this was like they actually, like you said, Jen, they actually had a plan. Like they're a trained army now, and Hercules actually lures. It's like trap inception, because Rhesus tricked Hercules and Lord Codius. Was that his name?
Yeah, something like that.
Lord Codius. King John Hurt. He tricked them with a trap, and then Hercules actually has a trap laid for Rhesus, because out of nowhere we get Atalanta and the archers that she's been training just rolling in on horseback and taking out like literally a quarter of Rhesus's men off the top.
That was awesome. And then all the archers behind the phalanx of the infantry shooting over. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, like this. And then Ian McShane waiting for the arrows to hit him and none hit him, and he's like,
yes. Like this is probably one of my favorite fight scenes, because I thought it was very well choreographed, and like we get the point where Rhesus's men shoot fire arrows and it does nothing. And like you said, like we got Ian McShane thinking that this is the day he's gonna die, because he had a vision that a flaming arrow would pierce his heart, and nothing hits him, and he's like, oh, I guess not today.
Yeah, all right, moving on.
But yeah, so Rhesus and his men are defeated. They're taken back to Thrace, and it's very much a wrestling scene where the crowd is booing and they're throwing stuff at him, and we get this little plot point here where, as he's being led to jail or led to lockup, Thrace looks at Hercules and he's like, do you wonder why the king was able to do this? Think about it, Hercules. And Hercules has this pensive look on his face, and the king's like, don't listen to him, Hercules, he's lying. And so this sets up like the big reveal that this whole movie kind of revolves around, Jen. Like, I didn't see it coming. Did you see this coming?
No, because I feel like they maybe wrote the whole script and then they were like, this movie's really short. I guess we got to tack a twist on somewhere.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
The king of bad guy. All right. Like, there's nothing that foreshadows this. There's nothing that sets it up. There's not even a hint that John Hurt is the bad guy at all. Like, throughout the entire point up to this.
If anything, it would have been like the general taking this new army and overthrowing the king, because we saw like the general being shady, but not the king.
Exactly. So it's like, it's almost like they were like, they wrote the script and they filmed it up to this point, and then they were like, okay, but the movie's got to keep going for like at least another 20 minutes. And they were like, shoot, quick. I guess John Hurt's the bad guy now. Let's just go from there.
Yeah. So yeah, we get the heel turn. We get the plot twist here where the king is actually evil, and he was not like Rhesus wasn't the bad guy. It was actually the king, which again goes to kind of this theme that I think they could have hit on a bit harder, Jen, where Rhesus was being built up as this mythological evil figure. But in reality, like, he was just trying to defend himself against the king.
Yeah. But they didn't really make that super clear. Well, I mean, they didn't make the fact that he was just trying to defend himself super clear. Like, I felt like it was a very kind of like a forced plot twist. And then also Hercules' reaction to that plot twist from the guy he just defeated, who is obviously about to die and begging for his life, shouldn't have been, I should investigate this. It should have been like, I get my weight in gold. So long, suckers. Like,
yeah, because then we get like the victory banquet, and Hercules and the princess, who have little sexual chemistry. They meet in the corner of the banquet, and he's like, "Are you lying?" And then she's like, "I'm just doing this to protect my son that you've shown maybe 5 minutes of caring about during this film." And basically, they could have even had the princess like being like wary of her father to illustrate that he had some bad intentions, but like or show like the king being mean to the kid, like at least give us some kind of clue that everything's not right with him. But so she says, I'm doing this for my son because the king killed my husband, and like, if like he's gonna turn my son into a bad person, and Hercules run away with my son and protect him, and then that way he can be the king when this king dies. And Hercules is like, I didn't sign up for any of this.
It's like, no.
Like, I know I gave your son that little trinket, the lion's tooth, but that was just a thing. It wasn't a real commitment.
That doesn't mean I want to raise him. Like, come on. I was just trying to get him to leave me alone.
Yes.
I was trying to train an army, and this kid was just there all the time. Like, come on. Yeah.
So like the thing that got me was so like they go back to talk to the king. And the king is basically like, join me.
Suddenly evil.
Yes, lead my army. And he's like, and Hercules is like, no, I'm good. And he's like, what are you gonna do about it, child killer? And then Hercules is like, excuse me. And so we think we're gonna get this fight, but they're like, no, here's your gold, get out of town. And we get this, you talk about forced turns, and forced actions from these characters that feel out of character. We get Autolycus after they get their gold. Everybody's getting, they're getting ready to leave town. Hercules is like, we can't do this. I've got to protect the people of Thrace. And everybody is like throwing their gold down. And you're like, that's right. I'm with you, Hercules. Autolycus takes everybody's gold, throws it in the cart, and is like, I'm out. Have fun storming the castle. I'm not part of this.
Yeah, but that kind of felt on character for him, because throughout the whole movie, he's been mostly concerned with getting paid.
True.
like when the princess first shows up and says, I will pay you your weight in gold, the first thing Autolycus does is push food at Hercules and say, eat up.
That was a good bit.
Yeah, that was great. He's the funny one. So I didn't feel like that was a little bit out of character. I thought that he could have maybe felt a little more hesitant because I mean, this is his family.
It was very abrupt.
Yeah. But I mean, I didn't find that was completely out of character. And I'm like, I know he's going to come back. Like,
that too. Yeah. And like, I think you're right. Like, maybe not so much out of character, but as maybe like a lot of things in this film, they didn't put the pieces in place to kind of set up that moment.
Yeah. Because they were trying to keep the plot going. So they're like, forget about character development. Let's just keep moving.
Yeah. Because I feel like we should have seen more, like, and honestly, you could say that about a lot of things in this film. I feel like we should have seen more of their relationship between Hercules and Autolycus, because I think there was an opportunity to really kind of contrast these guys who are fighting for the same thing, but might be doing it for different reasons.
Yeah, because we hear Autolycus' side of things. We hear him explain why they're basically brothers and how they met on the streets of Athens, but we never really hear Hercules talk about he calls Iolaus nephew a bunch of times, but we don't really hear him talk about his group.
Yeah.
Like in any kind of a personal way.
Like again, we've said like this movie is moving at a quick pace. I feel like they could have taken at least 5 or 10 minutes and given us a little bit more of the dynamic of the group, because while I liked everybody and I thought everybody did a good job in their roles, they were, outside of Hercules, they were kind of one-dimensional.
Yeah. Yeah, or they were very stereotypical.
Yes.
Like
and one guy didn't even get to talk at all.
He got to say Hercules at the end.
At the very end, he gets to say Hercules and die.
Yep. Also, that whole part, I'm like, he's got really nice teeth. It stands out against the like dirty face and I'm like, his teeth are very white and straight.
Hercules taught him how to brush his teeth well.
Yeah, apparently, while he was being more animal than human. Just giving him like milk bones or something.
So Autolycus leaves, never to be seen again, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely never to be seen again. No way he's coming back.
And so Hercules is like, okay, we're down a man, but we still got to do what's right. So they decide to go and spring Rhesus out of jail. And this is where we get our other crazy plot twist.
This is the stupidest plan ever.
Because like Hercules is just barging into the dungeon to break Rhesus out. Obviously the king's men come out, surround him. The general's there. The king is there. They threaten the kid because now the king has found out that the princess was trying to tip Hercules off, so she's in danger now. The king's like, I'm going to raise the boy as my own. And out of nowhere, we get the return of the original king, the king of Athens, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, what was his name?
Out of nowhere.
I know. I was like, where the hell did he come from? What's his name? Eurystheus.
Yeah, out of nowhere. Just shows up and I was behind this all along, Hercules.
I've been hiding behind the throne this whole time. It's like, I know. I'm like, oh my God, really? Why is he here? They felt that they didn't pay. They paid Joe Fiennes too much for him to only be in little flashback scenes. Yeah. So they're like, he has to come back and be the villain again. Another one.
I will say he did have one of my favorite lines of the movie, though. I will give Joe credit on this because so they've got Hercules chained up in much like a Samson position almost.
Yeah.
Chained up, shirtless, of course, because we gotta pop some ratings here.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with that part.
we gotta get some eyeballs on the screen here. Give them all this eye candy. So Hercules is chained up. All of his friends are, locked up in the dungeons, and we get that great reveal, like you mentioned, Jen, where Hercules thinks he sees Cerberus, and it turns out instead of a 3-headed dog, it's actually 3 wolves. The 3 wolves that the king of Athens used to kill his family, and Hercules says, why did you do this? I didn't want anything from you, and Joe Fiennes drops the line, I can deal with an ambitious man. He can be bought. But a man who wants nothing has no price. I'm like, that's actually a really nice line. Yeah. I didn't need you to come back to deliver it, but that was a good line.
Yeah, no, that was a good line. He could have delivered that much earlier in the movie before he banished him from Athens. But yeah, that was a really good line.
Yeah, so it turns out he actually had Hercules' family killed because Hercules was getting too popular with the crowd. They were chanting for Hercules and not whatever the king's name was. Probably because probably because his name is so much more difficult to pronounce than Hercules. Like it's nothing personal. It's just your name has too many consonants and letters in it. We can't get it on rhythm. So the King Joe, King of Athens, has teamed up with Lord Cody, or whatever his name is, and
King John Hurt.
King John Hurt, yes, and they're working together, and so they're bringing out the princess to chop her head off. She's going to be the first one to die because of her betrayal. And again, so many parts of this movie don't make sense to me, but it works when you're watching it. But if you take a step back, like we've done today, Jen, and look at this film, like is Hercules a god? Like, or is he just a really buff dude? Because Hercules is just sitting there, he's chained up, he can't move the chains, and then he gets the pep talk from Ian McShane. The stories are, it doesn't matter if the stories are true. It matters what's inside of you. What is your name? Who are you? And we get, I am Hercules.
Show me the money.
and out of nowhere, Rock just breaks, Hercules rips the chains from the walls and is able to
out of the stone.
Yeah. Like, so did Hercules, like, is he a god or is he just a man? Like a really buff man, Jen?
I mean, you could make the argument those are old rusty chains and they just, cracked. But I like that the movie wants to keep you guessing because Ian McShane's character obviously believes that the gods are real because he gets visions from them, or he believes he is. They're worshiping that giant statue of Hera. So
which we get shots of multiple times.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is the belief that the gods are real in the movie. Whether they're actually real is the whole point of it, which I think is very interesting. And I like that it stays unanswered. It's up to you to decide.
Yeah. Like I like it. I just think that maybe, and this is no shade on Brett Ratner. The man's done fine work. I like the Rush Hours, at least 2 of the Rush Hours. But I feel like he's not the director to kind of weave that fine a story that, he doesn't have the nuance, I don't think, to really pull off what the movie's trying to pull off.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm not great at directors, so I don't know who they would get instead. But
yeah, well, I think you've got to have somebody, and that's the catch-22, because you've got to have somebody that can do the action stuff, but you also got to have somebody that can work those story beats.
Yeah.
Like maybe, see, it's too early for them because they hadn't done the Marvel stuff yet, I don't think. But maybe the Russos could have pulled this off.
Yeah, that's true. They were good.
Like the Winter Soldier version of Hercules.
Ooh, I'd watch that.
that would just make it a better movie.
Yeah, that would just make it a little better.
Yes. So yeah, Hercules breaks the chains and. We get the. I
do like that kind of when the dust settles and you see him like standing there. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the money shot right there.
Yes. Yeah, like the last 20 minutes of this movie is just Rock with no shirt on doing feats of strength. Because he fights these wolves. He kills at least 2 of the wolves with his bare hands. I think he killed the 3rd one, or maybe somebody else did. He
kills all 3 of them because they're all dead by the time the princess gets his buddies out of jail. That's
right. Cause it took forever for her to let the crew out of jail. It's like, what? Like these aren't master locks, lady. Like just chop the thing with the axe and get them out.
It also made me wonder. It's like, okay, so the wolves kill obviously by biting and scratching and that kind of stuff. So when Hercules saw his dead wife and kids, did he think that he chewed them to death?
That is a good question.
How did he not notice that, these are the wounds that an animal would make?
Well, you answered the question earlier, Jen, because now we know Hercules was high off of that opium.
Oh, maybe.
At the time, so he didn't know what was going on. He just saw 3 dead bodies, and he was like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. Take some of this medicine with me.
Yeah. Hercules kills the wolves. His friends get let out of jail. This is the moment where we think Ian Ian McShane is about to die.
Yeah.
Because he's been talking, like, at least for the last 20 minutes, that today I'm going to die through an arrow with a flame through my heart.
Flaming arrow through the heart.
There's a flaming arrow shot at him, and he just stands there. He's ready to accept his fate. And out of nowhere, Hercules grabs the arrow, and Ian McShane's like, you're always stepping onto my moments.
Yeah. I love that he's like, hey, I was going to die. Do you mind? And Hercules is like, you're welcome.
Yeah. So Hercules ends up chasing down the king, which, again, like, what did the king think he was accomplishing here, King Joe? Because Hercules tracks down King Joe, and King Joe's like, hey, you want some money? What can I do? Like, I need,
I know. I was waiting for him to, like, pull out a pair of glasses and be like, you wouldn't hurt a guy with glasses, would you?
Yeah, well, like, and I was waiting because he's like, I can give you anything. What do you want? I was waiting for The Rock to say, give me my family back.
I want my family back.
But he didn't say that after he kills King Joe, when he was like, say hello to my family.
Oh, no, it was like, ask forgiveness from my family, which I was like, okay,
from my family.
That's a good line. I like that.
And they didn't give that line time to breathe because, no pun intended, because out of nowhere, the bone whip wraps around Hercules' neck, and we get the general. He's like, I've never killed a god before, and we think this is going to be like the anticlimactic end to Hercules' life until.
But the general's never killed a guy before? Did he say that?
He said, I've never killed a god before.
Oh, a god. Oh, I thought you said guy, and I'm like, well, you're a really lousy general of an army if you've never killed somebody before.
I mean, like, he scares them with the bone whip, and they don't want those problems. I
wrote in my notes, return of bone whip, impractical and stupid, but looks cool.
Yes, it is a neat effect. But the general gets run through from behind with axe or a spear or something from Aeolus, that's another thing. Aeolus, this whole film, has been wanting to fight, and Hercules always, makes him stand in the back, and, you're the storyteller nephew, you're not a warrior, and, he kills the general, and then he's like, am I a warrior now, or something to that effect.
I think I want to fight. I'm ready to fight now. And I'm like,
yeah, I think I'm ready to fight now.
You should have been fighting all along, dude. Like, come on. You got to earn your keep.
I mean, he's the hype man. He's the storyteller, Yeah,
you can do both.
That was an interesting character beat from him, though. Like, during the earlier battles, he would just speak of the legend of Hercules in the middle of the fighting.
And they were like, shut up, we're fighting.
he was like a Vince McMahon doing play-by-play.
Yeah, he was good. I liked his character.
Yeah. He was like,
I think they maybe should have made him a little younger, in my opinion.
Yes, yeah. Like, I think all of it, like, everybody, their ages seemed a little bit off to me.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because they had to work. Like, Rock is older than he looks just because he looks like $1 million, but, Rock's not old, but he's an older actor. He's middle-aged, quote unquote. I wish I looked that good at The Rock's age. I wish I looked that good now, to be honest, ladies and gentlemen. But I think, like, it's weird because, they have the thing with Titius, and then, like, his nephew looks a little too old for the character that he's playing. Atalanta, like, they don't give her a whole hell of a lot to do at all. Like, I think she's underused in this film.
No, her job is to basically stop the general from taking advantage of her.
Yes, like that's
her big scene.
Yeah, like that's it. And then Ian McShane to me just fits just because he's Ian McShane.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So then this brings us to our final battle, Jen, where the crew's out. We've killed the King of Athens, King Joe. The general's dead. The only person left is King Cody. And King Cody has the army behind him, the army that Hercules and his crew trained. And we get the scene where they're going to kill the kid, and all hope is lost, Jen. But out of nowhere, Autolycus comes back.
Wow, what a surprise. He missed all the hard part.
Yeah, just throwing knives. Like, I think that That's something that we could have seen more of. Just Autolycus throwing daggers and knives at people.
Yeah, I wonder where he keeps them all.
That is a good question.
A lot of knives.
Yeah, like a never-ending source of like. Well, I guess it's like Oliver Queen's arrows. Like you just never run out. They just keep replenishing. So Autolycus comes back, and here's the thing. This is what I didn't get. This might have been the most improbable thing to me, Jen. If you're these guys in the army, you just spent the last, I'm assuming, month or so fighting with Hercules, fighting alongside Hercules. Like, you know what this man can do. You know what Hercules brings to the table.
Yeah, you've listened to all the stories and the legends.
You've heard the stories. You heard the legends. Like, why would you fight Hercules? Like, he's the one that trains you. Why would you fight the man that trains you?
Yeah, I was expecting them, at least some of the army to turn their back on him, like on John Hurt.
Especially the two soldiers that we focused on for the most part. Like all the soldiers are nameless except for two. Well, these two are nameless too. We never hear their names, but we've seen their faces a bunch. Like even those guys were fighting until the very end when they're like, okay, let's not fight anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I think. Yeah, I thought like that would have been a good thing to do is have at least some of the army turn on John Hurt, because that would have made all of Aeolus's talking throughout the entire movie have a little more weight, because it would have been like, oh yeah, look, the people actually buy into these stories and these legends, and like you said, they've been training with him and they know who he is, and like, yeah. But I mean, I guess at the end of the day, John Hurt's the one who's paying them.
That is true. Like these are guys who like were farmers 6 months ago, so they're like, "Hey, it's a living." So
pretty much, it's like, sorry, Herc, but I mean, he's going to give me money.
Yeah. So we see like they're shooting arrows. They're trying to like capture the kid / kill the kid, because arrows don't have guidance systems on them. So like the kid could have easily been killed in all of this. But we get Titius. Titius saves the kid. What's the kid's name? Like Atreus?
I didn't write it down. Something like that. I just wrote the prince.
Yes, he saves a little prince and gets like 15, 20 arrows. Like just
he gets Boromired.
Yes, like he is not stopping for any of these arrows. So like they save the kid. They get to
He's like using his axes to like hit the arrows out of the air.
Yes.
And I wrote, that's not how axes or arrows work. But okay, it looks cool.
That's not how axes work. That's not how arrows work. That's not how the human body works once it gets hit by arrows.
Yeah, I was like, okay. But the kid's all right. I mean, you can't really have a movie where a child gets skewered by arrows.
So
not with the Rock.
The kid's all right, and then no, the Rock wouldn't allow that. No. We get a touching scene between Titius and the man who raised him from when he was a young boy. His surrogate father, Hercules, who was 3 years older than him.
Yeah, who should have been an older brother figure, but we already touched on that.
And as he is dying, Titius utters the first word and last word he will ever speak. And he's like, Hercules. And they smile, and then he dies.
It would have been funnier if he said, ow.
See, I thought he was going to say, like, brother or something, like, sentimental. But he's like, Hercules, like, I know your name.
It's like, after all these years, I remember your name.
So Titius dies.
It was supposed to be super emotional, but it really wasn't.
It wasn't emotional because we still got a fight to get to, because the army is still charging this huge statue of Hera, which conspicuously keeps getting put in the frame. I don't know if that's gonna come back, Jen. But
no, they just spent so much money building that prop. They had to get as much use out of it as they could.
Yes. So Hercules, like they tip over the flames, like the big torches.
That was cool.
They tip them over.
Yeah, all of those torches would have been full of oil. Like that's how they would keep the fire going, is burning oil. So that actually made a heck of a lot of sense to do, is to pour the oil down the walls and create this big wall of fire or down the stairs.
And like, yeah, I thought that was a cool idea and also a cool effect. And then the soldiers like smartly like start running, and the king is like, get back up there. And it's like, why do you not see the fire coming down here?
Okay.
So this is it. This is our last stand, and the king is telling Hercules, you're just a man, you're not a god, and you bow to me. And Hercules gets the bright idea, I'm gonna push the Hera statue over and take out everybody. And so he's training, he's using all his muscles, and finally with one, again, very Samson-ish, this last 20 minutes of the movie with Hercules, much like Samson did with the Philistines. Hercules pushes the big statue down, and the head of Hera comes off and rolls the king into like a cavern, like off the side of a mountain.
Had that mountain always been there?
I don't think so.
Or like the river or wherever he went. I was like, where did that come from?
Yeah. Like that was a weird, like I thought it was just going to crush him, but it pulled him off the side of a cliff, which we didn't really see for the
who knows where that cliff came from.
Yes. So like not only did the Rock, not only did Hercules kill the king, but he I guess he got one up on his, on Hera, like the other unseen antagonist throughout this whole picture.
Yeah. Like final FU to Hera. I knocked down your statue.
So once the statue's down and the king is dead, everybody they're like, okay, we have no reason to fight. And the two soldiers that we've seen their faces, they take off their helmets and bow to Hercules, and everybody else does the same thing, and everybody starts chanting Hercules, Hercules. Exactly like that, Jen. They were just Hercules, Hercules. Which that would have made the movie better for me if they had done that.
Yeah, just put do like a cut of it and just superimpose the sound over it.
Yes.
Hercules.
But this is where we get like our big wrap up. And so, Ian McShane is like, who is Hercules? Is he a story? Is he the god? Is he a man? What matters the most is that he's a hero, and you need heroes in times like these, and anybody can be a hero. And we get this panning shot of our group of heroes, ? Because we've got the princess and her kid who, by this point, we really don't care about the two of them. We get Rhesus, who for most of this movie was the bad guy, but now he's
I forgot that he was there until that point. I'm like, where was he through all this fighting?
He just shows up, and we get Rhesus, we get, Atalanta, we get Autolycus, we get Aeolus, we get Hercules, and then it ends up on Ian McShane, and Ian McShane, great ending of the movie where he's like, you can be your own hero, and that's all it takes. Believe in yourself. But what do I know? Because I'm supposed to be dead right now.
I know. I was like, that's such a good ending for this movie. It's like, what do I know? I'm supposed to be dead.
And Q follow me into the jungle, and super hype, super testosterone filled credits.
Oh yeah. I was like, oh, those are terrible, terrible credits.
Like, I imagine this was because it looks like what would have been the trailer for like a Hercules video game tie-in.
Yeah, I could see that. They were very like CGI video game avatar type looking. Yeah.
But like,
very odd.
We get follow me into the jungle, which is like, okay, like that certainly feels of a time. That was certainly like your 2010s.
Oh yeah.
So we wrap up the film, Jen, and before we get to our grades for the movie, like just overall, like how do you feel about the story? Because again, like I came into this is the first time I'd watched the movie. I've heard, kind of the lukewarm reception it got. I thought the movie was interesting. I do think though that in the hands of a better director, maybe a better screenwriter, they could have kind of told that told the story of this is a guy who is basically almost like a hoax. Like he's living off the reputation of something he's not because he's got these people around him who will help foster that reputation, almost like a Wizard of Oz type of facade. But they never really went that way, and they never really went super deep into the mythology either, I don't think.
No, they just kind of walked the line right in between. So you're left wondering the whole time, is it a con or is it fact? Which actually was one of the things I really liked about it. Overall, I think I really enjoyed this movie. This is, I think, the second time I've seen it. And yeah, it didn't, other than the minor historical inaccuracies that I pointed out. And again, this is why people don't watch these movies with me all the time. I found that overall, like plot-wise, it was a really interesting take on the myth of Hercules and a good way to make it more quote-unquote factual than mythological. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I was fortunate that it was on Netflix, so I didn't have to buy it other than, paying for Netflix. But if I had to have bought it for this podcast, I wouldn't have been upset that I had to spend the $8 or $10 on it.
Yeah, well, see, like I watched it on YouTube, so I spent $4, and I feel like I got my money's worth. Like I feel like, it's not the greatest movie I've seen, but I think, and I don't know if it was fully. I don't know if it was fully baked, Jen. Like, so this is like a chocolate chip cookie. And, sometimes you can bake a chocolate chip cookie too much and it's too hard. Sometimes you can like undercook it and it's like good, but it's like the center's a little too gooey. And then you get it just right. Like, I feel like this is a little bit undercooked. Like they were supposed to leave it in the oven for like 20 minutes and they took it out after 15. So you got the semblance of like the foundation of something that I think could have been super interesting. But at the end of the day, like we said off the top, it wasn't amazing, but it wasn't terrible either. It was just fine.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun movie to watch. If you just feel like having an action movie or an adventure movie that doesn't really involve too much thought. I mean, you can obviously put a lot of thought into it like we just did, or you can just kind of sit back and watch it for what it is and just enjoy it.
It's a quick watch.
Yeah, it's a quick one, and it's quick. It moves. You're never really bored in this movie. There's no really kind of laggy parts. So, I mean, overall, I think that it was good.
And here's how we know what the movie was all about, Jen, because Brett Ratner had the audacity to put out an extended director's cut.
Oh my goodness, really?
And so the movie that we watched, the theatrical cut, was 1 hour and 38 minutes. The Brett Ratner extended director's cut was 1 hour and 42 minutes.
Oh my goodness! I think that's the one I watched because I think I was 42 minutes.
That's the one. Okay, I was gonna say all he did was he added like one scene and then put in a lot more like blood and guts. Because the theatrical cut is like a little bit more sanitized because of they wanted to keep a PG-13 rating. So the director's cut has a little bit more gore in it.
You got me a little bit excited there for a minute. I was like, oh, I thought there was going to be like a 2-hour version with like you said, puts it in the oven for a couple more minutes and brings it up to perfect cookie. But no, they just tacked in a couple minutes of gore.
Like that's the thing. Like you had the audacity, sir, to put out a director's cut, which is only like 5 minutes more. Like that's you could have just threw that on the DVD.
Yeah, that doesn't even warrant being called a director's cut. Yes. That's like, yeah.
Zack Snyder is laughing at you, Brett Ratner. I'll show you a director's cut. All right, so Mike, now it is time for us to grade 2014's Hercules. And Jen, for the benefit of you, or maybe even for the benefit of some of the listeners who have not, heard this show, like we have a very specific, precise rating system here on the Rocky Maivia Picture Show. It's a 5-point scale. If a movie is perfect, if a movie is excellent, you'd watch it again and again and again, then we just went one-on-one with a great one. That's a 5 out of 5. If a movie is solid, if it's fun, and The Rock is good in it, it's not great, but it's, it's close to good. I mean, it's close to great. That's a 4 out of 5. That's a people's champ. If a movie is not great, but it's not terrible, it's solid, it's a fun ride, that's a 3 out of 5. That's a know your role. If a movie is kind of bad, it's kind of a waste of time, but The Rock is charming in it, or if it's got some redeeming qualities, that's a 2 out of 5. That's a jabroni joint. But if a movie is terrible, has no redeeming qualities, you'll never want to watch it again, you're cursing yourself for watching it the first time. If a movie is Doom or Empire State, which we have talked about both of those films on this program, that's a 1 out of 5. That's a rock bottom. So, Jen, on a scale of 1 to 5, what would you rate 2014's Hercules?
After I finished watching it, I rated it. I think I'm going to stick with my rating. I rated it a 4 out of 5. The People's Champ.
Okay.
Because I thought that it was very rewatchable. I thought it was pretty good. After we've dissected it a bit, it's kind of slipped a little closer to the 3. But I think I'll still give it a 4.
Okay. So Jen's giving it a 4 out of 5 of People's Champ. It's funny because I had the same experience of my grade changing, but in the opposite direction.
Okay.
Because when I first got through with the film, I was like, it was okay, but it was nothing to write home about. So I was looking like in that 2 out of 5 range. But I feel like the more we've talked about it and the more I've thought about it, this is a fun movie. I think I'm more disappointed at what it could have been. But if I'm just looking at it for what it is, you're right. It's a fun action film. It's a fun adventure film. It pays homage to, the source material, as it were, with the Greek mythology. And, it's fun. It's harmless. So I had a good time with it. It's a good rainy day film. I do feel almost like this idea might have worked better as a limited series than a film. And obviously you couldn't do it with The Rock if you do it in the series fashion. But if you took this idea of Hercules, who is a guy who's is he a god or is he just a really buff dude? And you kind of do like they did, update the Kevin Sorbo series with a less problematic lead actor. And have Hercules going from village to village on these adventures, but we really don't know. Maybe we don't get it until, midway through the series, whether he's the actual Hercules or just a guy profiting off of the Hercules brand, so to speak.
Or they could have done a mini series, 4 episodes, maybe hour each or half hour each. And they just kind of go through it.
I think that's what I was looking for from this idea, from this concept. But, looking at it for what it is, I don't think it's as bad as some of the reviews have been. I think it's a fun time. Ian McShane's great. I think the Rock does what he can. I think the Rock is hampered by being The Rock more than anything else in this film. He can't, like you said, Hercules should probably be more of a jerk. I think The Rock is just too nice to be the Hercules that the film needs him to be, which is going to be interesting when we see him in Black Adam, because he's got to be kind of a bad guy for that one.
Yeah, but this is still pretty early on in The Rock's acting careers, right? So, he probably hasn't evolved very much at this point to be able to play more depth of character. So he's still kind of playing himself in an ancient Greek movie. But,
and here's the thing though. I think because this would probably be the midway point for The Rock, where this is the Dwayne Johnson era, where he's finally embraced his name on the marquee, instead of first he was The Rock for a long time, then he was Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Now he's just Dwayne Johnson. He's doing Fast and Furious films. He's doing this Hercules film. I feel like, yes, you're right. He has progressed as an actor, but I don't think he's not a good enough actor to overshadow how good a person he is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson always kind of shines through regardless of the role. And so that to me is going to be interesting when we get to Black Adam, because it's you got to lose yourself in his character, because nobody can hate Dwayne Johnson except for maybe some Republicans now. But nobody in their right mind can hate Dwayne Johnson. So it's going to be kind of crazy for me, Jen, to see how he makes us, if not outright hate him, at least kind of dislike him for that role.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. Because like we were saying before, he tends to pick the roles that make him seem like a better person. So he tends to pick more of the straight and narrow, moral and ethic good guy. But having him as, that's a really good point. Now I'm interested to see it too. I didn't really have much interest in Black Adam, but now I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, like this. See, we could start a whole different conversation. True Northern Nerds adjacent, because I was always interested in Black Adam just because of The Rock, but like now the fact that we're hearing like Aldous Hodge is going to play Hawkman, and
yes, oh my God, I'm so excited. I love him.
Yeah, like he's great. Like, and the fact that we're getting a live action on screen Hawkman, like that, that's going to be really interesting. So,
oh yeah. And he's great for that role too, because I always picture Hawkman. We're on a way tangent now. I always picture Hawkman as like not like a really buff, muscular guy, but more like a lithe, skinnier guy. Yes. Because he's got to fly, right? So he can't be super heavy, otherwise he won't be able to fly. So I thought the casting for that was phenomenal, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, he's really good. Like I'm glad like Leverage is coming back. So this is Aldous Hodge's time.
Good for him.
So yeah, like that's another conversation for another day. Yeah. But yeah, so Jen gave 2014's Hercules a 4 out of 5 of People's Champ. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I know your role. So basically what we're saying is, you got a lot of time right now anyway, because of what's going on in the world. So if, you don't even need 90 minutes. You just need like, an hour and 20 minutes and you're good, for Hercules, unless you want to watch the Brett Ratner extended cut. Then you need an hour 30.
If you've had a long day and you just want to put on something to take your mind off of how long your day was, pop this on. Yeah. It's a fun little escape.
It's a fun little escape. And it's also like, I feel like this type of movie, it's definitely now and probably in 2014, would try to go for that next level in terms of a rating. But this is actually like something, if you've got, not young kids, but if you got kids that are as old as the boy in this movie, like they can watch this film.
Yeah, I mean, apparently the director's cut's a little bit more violent, but there's not an excessive amount of blood and guts and gore.
Yeah, so if you're raising a grown man that's 3 years younger than you, as that you rescued from a village, you can have a movie night and watch Hercules.
He'll be fine for him.
So before we get out of here, let's let the people know what's coming up next time, and then we'll come back on the other side with some plugs. Because like, if you guys and girls thought Hercules was a journey to a faraway land, buckle up, because playing next time in the theaters, it's going to be 2015's San Andreas.
Ooh, that's a fun movie.
Are you hurt?
People need to know that the shaking is not over. We'll get hit again. And it's going to be a bigger monster.
I've been for long.
Oh my God.
The earth will literally crack open. And you will feel it on the East Coast.
I love you, Dad.
I cannot emphasize this enough. out, and I mean now. If you can't, God be with you.
All right, hold on. We gotta get over it before Crest.
Yeah, so you're a fan of San Andreas.
Yeah. Well, it was okay for as far as disaster movies go.
That's the thing. Like, I think, again, like whether we're talking San Andreas or Skyscraper, like I feel like The Rock is good in all of these things, but he's always like The Rock. Like, it doesn't matter what the character's name is. Like, it's still DJ.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's always playing like some every man that is unattainably handsome and unattainably fit, that loves his family and for whatever reason has to save his family. And that's his character.
Yeah, exactly. And he does it well.
Yes, he does it well. Well, speaking of doing it well, Jen, you did a fantastic job, not only talking about this film, but also, getting into the root of the story, taking us back to ancient Greece and pronouncing names that the listeners and myself cannot readily pronounce. So thank you, Jen, for coming on and let the people know about your podcast and what you got going on, because I definitely want them to support you guys.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I had a really fun time. You can find me at the True North Nerds podcast, which is a podcast on general nerdiness that I have with my husband, Brent, and our friends, Ryan and Kevin, and that you can find on Facebook at True North Nerds. You can email us at truenorthnerds@gmail.com. We're on Instagram at True North Nerds, on Twitter at True North Nerds. You get the idea. It's just basically True North Nerds. I also do another podcast based on my deep love of Sailor Moon called Sailor Snacking, and that's with my co-host Tracy, where we go through every episode of the 1990s Sailor Moon anime. We do two episodes of the show per episode of the podcast, and in between we have a snack of some sort. So we've had fun things like chips that they were like lychee fruit chips, which are odd. We had corn ice cream. We've had mochi. We made Japanese souffle pancakes. So if you're interested in any kind of snacks like that, you should definitely, or Sailor Moon, you should definitely check out that. And you can find that on Instagram at Sailor Snacking.
Very cool. Yeah, I will definitely, because I feel like by now, because I've definitely talked to Brent a bunch of times, and I think I've talked to Ryan and Kevin on one episode.
Yep.
So yeah, because it was on the DC Fandom. I talked to Ryan and Kevin on that episode. So you're the only one of the True North Nerds, Jen, that I have not talked about on your show. So eventually we'll have to make that happen.
Yeah, well, next time you're on our True North Nerds, I'll make sure that I'm on too.
Like, you're always gone. Like I don't know what's going on. Like you're like Autolycus. You leave right when I needed you.
And I come back throwing knives.
Yes. Yeah, so that is Gen Chittenden. You can check her out on the True North Nerds with friend of the program, brother Brent, who's fast becoming this media mogul on the radio, got the podcast going. Good things for Brent Chittenden in 2020. I'm glad to see it.
Oh yeah, I should probably plug that. He'd appreciate it. So my husband Brent's got a radio show called The Dark Side, and it is playing if you're in Canada and especially in Northern Ontario, it's playing on an Aurelia station, but you can go to 89.1 Max FM. If you just Google that, I'm sure it'll come up as a radio player, and you can just listen to it online. And his show, The Dark Side, comes on Thursdays at 9 p.m. and that's whatever time zone we're in. Eastern? Is that our time zone?
Yes.
I think we're Eastern. 9 p.m. Eastern.
Like what is time in 2020?
Yeah, I know. I have no concept of time anymore.
But yes, I'm very happy for Brenton. Yeah, definitely check that out. Thursdays at 9 Eastern. And as for me, you can find me on Twitter at @8 MOZAIK at Nate Mosaic on Twitter. Check out the Kings of Sport podcast with Marcus Vanderberg and myself. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/the Kings of Sport, where we've got over 100 hours of audio and video content for you. Take that, Brett Ratner. That's how you do. That's how you do extended content, sir. We've got political shows. We've got a couple of MCU reviews up there. So you guys and girls can check that out. Patreon.com/the Kings of Sport. Let's see what else. Oh, anybody that needs voice work, that is something that I've started over the past few months. So if you want this voice in your ears right now, if you want your very own Aeolus to tell the story of your brand or your school function or something, I can do that for not worth my weight in gold, Jen, but maybe, a quarter of my weight in gold. I will provide this voice for you listeners out there. So you can hit me up on Twitter for that. Let's see.
That's a very reasonable rate.
Yes. I mean, you can't put a price on this right here, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give a shout out to Braden Harrington for providing the theme for the show, Austin James and Robert Pearson for the logos of the podcast, and of course, shout out to John Pollock and Wei Ting, the proprietors of Post Wrestling, for all they do for the network. Well, that is going to end this edition of the Rocky Maivia Picture Show. Again, I want to thank my guest for this month, Gen Chittenden. Thank you for sitting down and traveling back to ancient Greece with me.
Oh, thanks very much for having me. I'm always up for a trip to ancient Greece.
I'm trying to think. I think this is the last sword and sandals movie The Rock does for a while. So we'll have to find another reason to bring you back on in the future. But I want to thank Jen for coming on the show. I want to thank you out there for listening to the program. And we'll be back next month with an all-new edition of the Rocky Maivia Picture Show. So, for Gen Chittenden, for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I am the Godfather Nate Milton. And remember, Nubian eyes are watching. We'll see you next time, folks.
Poontang your ass on out of here.
Oh! I can't believe it!